Tycoon stunned by the revelation of his ex-wife's secret life with twins. The silence was shattered by the shrill ring of his private line. Alexander's brow furrowed. Few people had this number, and fewer still would dare use it at this hour. He strode to his desk, his heartbeat quickening with each step. "Morgan," he answered, his voice gruff and authoritative. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, low and gravelly. "Mr. Morgan, I have information about Sarah." Alexander's grip on the phone tightened, his knuckles turning white. Sarah, a name he hadn't heard in years, yet it still had the power to make his world tilt on its axis. "Who is this?" he demanded, struggling to keep his voice steady. "How did you get this number?" "Who I am is irrelevant," the voice replied. "What matters is what I know about your ex-wife's secret life." Alexander's mind raced. Secret life? Sarah? The woman he thought he knew better than anyone else in the world? He swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. "I'm listening," he managed to say, lowering himself into his leather chair. "Not over the phone, Mr. Morgan. Meet me at the Bethesda Fountain in Central Park. Midnight. Come alone." The line went dead before Alexander could respond. He stared at the phone in his hand, a maelstrom of emotions swirling within him. Anger, confusion, and a hint of fear battled for dominance. His eyes drifted to the framed photo on his desk, a reminder of happier times. Sarah's smile beamed back at him, her eyes twinkling with a mischief he once found irresistible. Now, that same sparkle seemed to mock him, hiding secrets he couldn't begin to fathom. Alexander downed the rest of his scotch in one gulp, the burn in his throat a welcome distraction from the turmoil in his mind. He glanced at his watch, 10:30 p.m. In less than 2 hours, he would uncover the truth about the woman he thought he knew. As he grabbed his coat and headed for the elevator, Alexander couldn't shake the feeling that his world was about to be turned upside down. Little did he know, this mysterious call was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about love, trust, and the price of success. 5 years ago at a charity gala, "Mr. Morgan, have you met Sarah Lawson? She's the brilliant mind behind our new cybersecurity initiative." Alexander turned, his eyes meeting a pair of striking green ones. Sarah stood before him, radiant in a deep blue gown that seemed to shimmer under the chandeliers. "Ms. Lawson," he said, taking her hand, "I've heard remarkable things about your work." Sarah's smile was enigmatic, a hint of challenge in her eyes. "All good, I hope?" "Exceptional," Alexander replied, feeling a spark he hadn't experienced in years. "Perhaps you'd like to tell me more over a drink?" That night marked the beginning of a whirlwind romance. They were married within 6 months, their relationship the talk of New York's elite. For 5 years, they seemed invincible, the power couple who had it all. Alexander's reverie was interrupted as the elevator doors opened to the lobby. He stepped out, the weight of his memories heavy on his shoulders. Their life together had been perfect, or so he thought. Late nights working side by side, passionate debates over the future of technology, stolen moments of tenderness in between board meetings. Sarah had been his equal, his confidant, his rock. Then, 3 years ago, it all came crashing down. He remembered the day vividly. Returning home early from a business trip, eager to surprise Sarah, only to find their penthouse empty. No note, no explanation, just the echo of his own footsteps in the vast, silent space. Days turned into weeks of frantic searching, unanswered calls, and sleepless nights. Finally, a letter arrived, crisp white paper, Sarah's elegant handwriting. "Alexander, I'm sorry. There are things about me you could never understand. Please don't try to find me. It's better this way. Goodbye, Sarah." Those words had haunted him for 3 years. Now, as he stepped into the cool night air, hailing a taxi to Central Park, Alexander felt a mixture of dread and anticipation. What secrets had Sarah been hiding? What kind of life could she have been leading that would tear her away from everything they had built together? As the taxi weaved through the late-night traffic, Alexander's mind raced with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. He checked his watch, 11:45 p.m. In 15 minutes, he would be face to face with the truth. The taxi pulled up to the edge of Central Park. Alexander paid the driver and stepped out, his heart pounding. As he walked towards Bethesda Fountain, the shadows seemed to dance around him, holding secrets just out of reach. What lay ahead in the darkness? What revelations awaited him? Alexander steeled himself, knowing that whatever he was about to learn would change everything. The man who entered the park was not the same one who would leave it, of that he was certain. As he approached, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man in a dark overcoat, his face obscured by the brim of a fedora. Alexander's pulse quickened. "Mr. Morgan," the stranger's voice was low, matching the one from the phone call. "I'm glad you came." Alexander's eyes narrowed. "You said you have information about Sarah. I'm here. Talk." The man reached into his coat, pulling out a thick manila envelope. "Everything you need to know is in here. But be warned, Mr. Morgan. Once you open this, there's no going back." With trembling hands, Alexander took the envelope. Felt heavy, weighted with secrets. He tore it open, pulling out a stack of photographs and documents. His breath caught in his throat. The first photo showed Sarah, in a nondescript apartment, her hair a different color, her posture tense. But it was the next image that made his world tilt on its axis. Sarah holding two small children, twins, their features unmistakably reminiscent of his own. What is this?" Alexander's voice was barely a whisper. The stranger's voice was tinged with something akin to pity. "Your ex-wife's new life, Mr. Morgan. A life she's been hiding for the past 3 years." Alexander's mind reeled. Children, his children. How was this possible? As if reading his thoughts, the stranger continued, "There's more. Keep looking." With shaking hands, Alexander flipped through the rest of the contents. Bank statements showing large transfers to offshore accounts. Surveillance photos of Sarah meeting with shadowy figures. And finally, a letter, the handwriting unmistakably Sarah's. He began to read, his heart pounding so loudly he could barely hear the fountain's gentle splash. "My dearest Alexander, if you're reading this, it means my worst fears have come true. I never wanted to leave you, but I had no choice. The truth is, our life together was built on a lie, my lie. I am not who you think I am. The work I did, the secrets I uncovered, they put us all in danger. I had to disappear to protect you, and to protect our children. Yes, Alexander, we have children, twins. I found out just before everything fell apart. I couldn't tell you then. It would have put them at risk. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused you. Know that I loved you, I still love you. But some secrets are too dangerous to share. If you found this letter, it means they're closing in. Find us, Alexander. Find us before they do. Always yours, Sarah." Alexander looked up from the letter, his world spinning. The stranger was gone, melted back into the shadows of the park. He stood there, alone by the fountain, the weight of Sarah's secrets crushing down on him. Anger, betrayal, fear, and a flicker of hope warred within him. His wife, his children, a hidden life. As the realization of what he had to do next dawned on him, Alexander's resolve hardened. He would find Sarah. He would uncover the truth no matter the cost. With newfound determination, he strode out of the park, the envelope clutched tightly to his chest. The game had changed, and Alexander Morgan was ready to play. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would test his love, his principles, and everything he thought he knew about his life and the woman he had married. A sharp knock on the door jolted him from his thoughts. "Come in," he called, hastily gathering the documents. His assistant, Jessica, entered with a concerned look. "Mr. Morgan, I've got some troubling news. There's been a security breach in our R&D department." Alexander's head snapped up. "What kind of breach?" "Someone's accessed highly classified project files. We're not sure how deep it goes yet." A chill ran down Alexander's spine. Could this be connected to Sarah's disappearance? To the danger she'd alluded to in her letter? "Get me Thomas from cybersecurity," he ordered, his voice tight, "and cancel all my meetings for the day." As Jessica left, Alexander's gaze fell on the photo of Sarah and the twins, his children. The thought still felt surreal. Minutes later, Thomas burst into the office, his face pale. "Mr. Morgan, it's worse than we thought. The breach. It's not just in R&D, someone's been siphoning data from every department. Financial records, personnel files, everything." Alexander's fist clenched. "How long has this been going on?" Thomas swallowed hard. "Based on our initial analysis, 3 years. The timeline hit Alexander like a punch to the gut. 3 years. Exactly when Sarah disappeared. "Thomas," he said, his voice dangerously low, "I need you to do something for me, off the books. Can I trust you?" The younger man nodded, his eyes wide. "I need you to hire the best private investigators you can find. Discreetly, tell them to look for this woman." He handed Thomas the photo of Sarah with the twins. Thomas looked at the image, confusion evident on his face. "Sir, isn't this?" "Yes," Alexander cut him off. "And Thomas? This stays between us. No one else can know." "Understood." As Thomas left, Alexander turned to the window, his reflection staring back at him, a mix of determination and fear in his eyes. He picked up his phone, dialing a number he hadn't used in years. After several rings, a gruff voice answered. "Jack, it's Alexander Morgan. I need your help. It's about Sarah." There was a pause on the other end. "I thought we agreed never to speak of her again, Alex." Alexander's grip tightened on the phone. "Things have changed, Jack. She's in danger. And there are children involved." Another pause, longer this time. "Jesus, Alex, what have you gotten yourself into?" "I don't know," Alexander admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I need to find out. Will you help me?" The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity before Jack finally spoke. "Meet me at the old spot. 1 hour." As Alexander hung up, he felt a mix of relief and apprehension. Jack had been his head of security before Sarah disappeared. If anyone could help him navigate this web of secrets, it was Jack. He grabbed his coat, pausing to look once more at the photo of Sarah and the twins. "I'm coming," he whispered to their frozen images. "Whatever it takes, I'll find you." As he left his office, Alexander couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into a world far more dangerous and complex than he could imagine. But with the faces of his newfound family etched in his mind, he knew there was no turning back. The hunt for the truth had begun, and Alexander Morgan was determined to uncover every last secret, no matter the cost. Jack looked older than Alexander remembered, his once jet-black hair now streaked with gray. As Alexander approached, Jack didn't turn, but his shoulders tensed, acknowledging the billionaire's presence. "Jack," Alexander said, sliding onto the barstool next to him. "Alex," Jack grunted, taking a swig of his drink. "Start talking." Alexander pulled out the photo of Sarah and the twins, sliding it across the bar. Jack's eyes widened, his hand freezing mid-air as he reached for his glass. "Christ," he whispered. "When?" 3 years ago, apparently, Alexander replied, his voice tight. "The same time she vanished." Jack's weathered face creased with concern. "And you had no idea?" Alexander shook his head, the pain of betrayal fresh in his voice. "None. But that's not all, Jack. There's been a massive data breach at the company. Going back 3 years." Jack's eyes narrowed. "You think Sarah's involved?" "I don't know what to think anymore," Alexander admitted, running a hand through his hair. "But I need to find her." "Them?" Jack was silent for a long moment, studying the photo. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and grave. "Alex, if Sarah's mixed up in something big enough to make her disappear with your kids, this isn't going to be a simple search and rescue." "I know," Alexander said, determination burning in his eyes. "That's why I need your help. You're the only one I trust with this." Jack sighed, downing the rest of his drink. "All right, but we do this my way. No shortcuts, no half measures. If we're going to find them, we need to be smart and careful." Alexander nodded, relief washing over him. "Where do we start?" Jack pulled out a burner phone, his fingers flying over the keypad. "I've got some contacts. People who can dig deeper than your average PI. But Alex, he paused, fixing Alexander with a stern look, you need to be prepared. Whatever we find, it might change everything you thought you knew about Sarah. Alexander swallowed hard, the weight of Jack's words settling on his shoulders. I understand. Just find them, Jack. Please. As they left the bar, the cool night air hit Alexander's face, bringing with it a sense of both anticipation and dread. He knew that from this moment on, his life would never be the same. Days turned into weeks as Jack's network of contacts worked tirelessly. Alexander threw himself into the investigation, barely sleeping, his mind constantly racing with possibilities. Every lead, every whisper was pursued with relentless determination. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning, Alexander's phone buzzed with a text from Jack. We found her. Small town in Oregon. You need to see this. Alexander's heart raced as he rushed to meet Jack. As he burst into the private office they'd set up for the investigation, he found Jack staring at a wall covered in photos and documents, his face grim. Alex, Jack said, his voice heavy. We found Sarah, but there's something you need to know. He pointed to a series of surveillance photos. Sarah, looking over her shoulder as she hurried down a small town street. Sarah, ushering two small children into a modest house. And then, the image that made Alexander's blood run cold. Sarah, meeting with a man in a dark suit, exchanging what looked like computer drives. She's been living under an assumed name, Jack explained. Emily Green. The twins are registered as her niece and nephew. Alexander's mind reeled. But who is she meeting with? What's on those drives? Jack's expression darkened. That's the thing, Alex. We don't know. But whatever it is, it's big. And dangerous. As Alexander stared at the photos, a mix of emotions churned within him. Relief at finally locating Sarah and the children. Anger at the deception. And fear, bone-deep fear of what he might uncover next. Pack a bag, he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. We're going to Oregon. As they prepared for the journey that would finally bring him face to face with Sarah and the truth, Alexander couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the edge of a precipice. Whatever lay ahead would change everything. His life, his family, perhaps even the future of his company. But with the faces of his children etched in his mind, he knew there was only one path forward. Into the unknown, into the danger, to uncover the truth about the woman he loved and the secret life she'd been living. The real adventure was just beginning, and Alexander Morgan was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. There, Jack muttered, nodding towards a quaint coffee shop. That's where she goes every morning. Alexander's heart raced as he caught sight of a familiar silhouette through the window. Sarah, or Emily, as she was known here, sat at a corner table, her back to the wall, eyes constantly scanning her surroundings. I need to talk to her, Alexander said, his voice tight with emotion. Jack grabbed his arm. Alex, wait. We need to be smart about this. We don't know what kind of situation we're walking into, but Alexander was already out of the car, drawn like a magnet to the woman he'd thought he'd lost forever. As he pushed open the coffee shop door, the little bell above tinkled, causing Sarah to look up. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to stop. Sarah's face drained of color, her cup clattering to the table. Alexander, she whispered, her voice a mix of fear and disbelief. He approached slowly, his heart pounding. Sarah, he said, his voice cracking with emotion. Or should I say Emily? Sarah glanced around frantically, then grabbed Alexander's arm, pulling him towards the back exit. We can't talk here, she hissed. It's not safe. As they burst out into the alley behind the shop, Sarah's eyes were wild with panic. How did you find me? You shouldn't be here, Alexander. You have no idea what you've walked into. What I've walked into? Alexander's voice rose. Sarah, I've just discovered I have 2 children I knew nothing about. Children you've been hiding from me for years. I think I deserve some answers. Sarah's face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes. The twins, she whispered. Oh God, Alexander. I wanted to tell you. Every day, I wanted to tell you. Then why didn't you? He demanded, his anger and hurt bubbling to the surface. Because I was trying to protect them, Sarah shot back. To protect you. There are things you don't understand, dangers you can't imagine. Alexander stepped closer, his voice softening. Then help me understand, Sarah. Please. Who are you running from? What's going on? Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but her eyes suddenly widened in terror, fixed on a point behind Alexander. We need to go. Now! Before Alexander could react, Sarah grabbed his hand, pulling him into a run. They dashed through back alleys and side streets, Sarah leading the way with the familiarity of someone who'd planned for this exact scenario. As they ran, Alexander caught glimpses of men in dark suits pursuing them, their faces grim and determined. His mind reeled, trying to make sense of what was happening. Finally, Sarah pulled him into a hidden garage, slamming the door behind them. She rushed to a nondescript sedan, pulling open the back door to reveal two small, frightened faces. "Mommy?" A little girl whimpered. "What's happening?" Alexander's breath caught in his throat as he looked at the twins, his children, for the first time. Their eyes, so like his own, stared back at him with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Sarah quickly buckled them in, then turned to Alexander. "I know you have questions," she said, her voice trembling, "and I promise I'll explain everything. But right now, we need to get out of here. These people, they'll stop at nothing to get what they want." Alexander hesitated for a split second, his world turning upside down. Then he nodded, climbing into the passenger seat. As Sarah peeled out of the garage, tires squealing, he couldn't help but feel that he was diving headfirst into a world he barely understood. Glancing back at the twins, then at Sarah's determined face, Alexander realized that his life had irrevocably changed. Whatever secrets Sarah had been keeping, whatever dangers they were facing, he was now a part of it. As they sped out of town, leaving behind the life Sarah had built and the pursuers hot on their trail, Alexander knew that the truth he'd been seeking was far more complex and perilous than he could have ever imagined. The real journey was just beginning, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Alexander broke the tense silence. "Sarah, I need answers. Now." She sighed, her shoulders sagging slightly. "I know. You deserve the truth. All of it." "I'm listening," Alexander said, his voice a mix of anticipation and dread. Sarah took a deep breath. "I wasn't just your wife, Alexander. I was an undercover agent, tasked with infiltrating high-level corporate structures." The words hit Alexander like a physical blow. "An agent? For whom?" "A specialized division of international intelligence," Sarah replied, her voice low. "We investigate and neutralize threats that exist in the shadowy intersection of big tech and organized crime." Alexander's mind reeled. "And I was your target?" Sarah's eyes flashed with pain. "Initially, yes. But Alexander, what happened between us? That was real. I fell in love with you, truly and deeply. It wasn't part of the mission." "Then why did you leave?" Alexander demanded, his voice cracking with emotion. "Because I uncovered something massive," Sarah whispered. "A conspiracy that goes deeper than you can imagine. Your company, Alexander, it's at the center of it all." Alexander felt as if the ground had dropped out from beneath him. "What are you talking about?" Sarah glanced in the rearview mirror, ensuring the twins were still asleep. "There's a group within your organization, high-level executives, board members, who've been using the company's resources and influence for something terrible. They're developing AI technology that can manipulate global financial markets, influence elections, even control entire populations." "That's impossible," Alexander breathed. But even as he said it, pieces began to fall into place. Unexplained data breaches, mysterious project funding, board members' sudden wealth. "I wish it were," Sarah said grimly. "When I discovered the truth, I knew I had to run. These people, they'll stop at nothing to protect their secret." And then, she glanced back at the twins. "I found out I was pregnant. I couldn't risk staying. I couldn't risk them using our children as leverage." Alexander's head spun. "Why didn't you come to me? We could have faced this together." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I wanted to, God, Alexander, I wanted to tell you everything, but I didn't know how deep the corruption went. I couldn't be sure you weren't involved. The accusation stung, but Alexander understood. He reached out, gently touching Sarah's arm. I'm here now. We're in this together. Suddenly, Sarah tensed. We've got company, she said, nodding to the rearview mirror. A black SUV had appeared behind them, gaining ground quickly. Hold on, Sarah ordered, her voice shifting to a tone Alexander had never heard before. Cool, professional, dangerous. She swerved off the main road onto a barely visible dirt track, the car bouncing violently. The twins awoke, crying out in fear. It's okay, sweethearts, Sarah called back, her voice strained but soothing. Mommy and Daddy are here. Everything's going to be fine. Alexander turned to the children, his heart swelling with a fierce protectiveness he'd never experienced before. Hey there, he said softly. I'm your dad, and I promise, I'm going to keep you safe. The little boy's eyes widened. You're our real daddy? Yes, Alexander said, his voice thick with emotion. And I'm not going anywhere. As Sarah navigated the treacherous mountain path, Alexander's mind raced. His entire world had been turned upside down, but looking at Sarah and their children, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would do whatever it took to protect his family and uncover the truth. The SUV was still in pursuit, drawing closer. Sarah's face was a mask of concentration as she pushed the car to its limits. Alexander realized that their journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Whatever dangers lay ahead, whatever secrets still remained to be uncovered, they would face them together. As the car sped deeper into the unknown, Alexander steeled himself for the fight of his life. A fight for the truth, for justice, and for the family he never knew he had. Sarah, we can't keep this up forever, he said, tension evident in his voice. She nodded grimly, her eyes scanning the dense forest around them. There's a safe house about 10 miles from here. If we can make it. Her words were cut off by the deafening crack of gunfire. The rear window shattered, showering glass over the back seat. The twins screamed in terror. Get down, Sarah yelled, her training kicking in as she accelerated even faster. Alexander twisted in his seat, shielding the children with his body. It's okay, he murmured, his heart pounding. We're going to be all right. As they careened around another bend, Sarah suddenly slammed on the brakes. The car skidded to a halt at the edge of a steep ravine, a raging river far below. End of the road, she said, her voice tight. We have to make a run for it. Alexander's eyes widened in disbelief. Are you insane? With the kids? Sarah's gaze met his, fierce and determined. Trust me, Alexander. It's our only chance. The sound of screeching tires told them their pursuers were closing in. With no time to argue, they scrambled out of the car. Sarah scooped up their daughter while Alexander grabbed their son. Hold on tight, Sarah instructed the children. And whatever happens, don't let go. They plunged into the dense underbrush just as the SUV rounded the corner. Alexander's lungs burned as he ran, branches whipping at his face, his son clinging to him like a lifeline. Behind them, angry shouts and more gunfire erupted. A bullet whizzed past Alexander's ear, making him stumble. Daddy, his son cried out in fear. It's okay, buddy, Alexander panted, regaining his footing. I've got you. Ahead, Sarah veered sharply left, leading them towards what looked like a sheer rock face. As they drew closer, Alexander saw a narrow opening, a cave, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. They ducked inside just as their pursuers crashed through the underbrush behind them. Sarah led them deeper into the cave, the sounds of their heavy breathing echoing off the damp walls. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged into a larger cavern. Sarah fumbled with something on the wall, and suddenly, lights flickered to life, revealing a well-equipped hideout. Welcome to our bolt hole, Sarah said, setting their daughter down gently. Alexander lowered their son to the ground, his arms aching from the exertion. He looked around in amazement at the computer equipment, weapons, and supplies stocked neatly on shelves. You've been preparing for this, he said, realization dawning. Sarah nodded, already moving to secure the entrance. I always knew there was a chance they'd find us. I had to be ready. As the adrenaline began to wear off, the full weight of their situation hit Alexander. He sank onto a nearby cot, his head in his hands. "Oh God, Sarah," he whispered, "what have we gotten ourselves into?" She knelt before him, taking his hands in hers. "I know this is overwhelming, Alexander, but I need you to stay with me. Our children need you. I need you." He looked into her eyes, seeing the woman he fell in love with, the mother of his children, and now this fierce protector. In that moment, he made a decision. "I'm here," he said firmly. "Whatever it takes, whatever we have to do, I'm with you." Sarah's relief was palpable. She leaned in, pressing her forehead to his. "Thank you," she whispered. A small voice interrupted their moment. "Mommy? Daddy? Are the bad men gone?" They turned to see their twins huddled together, eyes wide with fear and confusion. Alexander's heart clenched at the sight. "Come here, little ones," he said, opening his arms. As the children rushed into their embrace, Alexander and Sarah shared a look of fierce determination. They were in this together now, a family united against a threat bigger than they could have imagined. In the safety of the hidden cavern, surrounded by his newfound family, Alexander knew that their journey was far from over. The truth about Sarah's past, the conspiracy within his company, and the danger they faced was still unfolding. But for now, holding his children close, feeling Sarah's strength beside him, he allowed himself a moment of hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one. The real fight was just beginning, and Alexander Morgan was ready to protect his family at all costs. Sarah's voice broke the silence, barely above a whisper. "We need to talk about what happens next, Alexander." He turned to face her, noticing the worried lines etched on her forehead. "I'm listening." She took a deep breath, her eyes never leaving the sleeping children. "The organization I uncovered, they're not just after me. They're after the twins." Alexander felt his blood run cold. "What? Why?" Sarah's voice trembled slightly as she continued. "It's because of how they were conceived. Alexander, do you remember that experimental fertility treatment we tried?" He nodded, confusion evident on his face. "Of course. You said it didn't work." "That's what I thought at first," Sarah replied, her eyes meeting his. "But the truth is, it worked too well. The twins, they're not just our children. They're the result of a highly advanced genetic engineering program." Alexander's mind reeled. "What are you saying, Sarah?" She reached for his hand, gripping it tightly. "Our children have abilities, Alexander. Abilities that the organization wants to exploit. Their cognitive development is off the charts. They can process information, solve complex problems in ways that shouldn't be possible for children their age." As if on cue, their son stirred in his sleep, mumbling what sounded like complex mathematical equations. Alexander stared in disbelief. "I've been protecting them, training them to hide their abilities," Sarah continued. "But now that the organization knows they exist, they'll stop at nothing to get their hands on them." Alexander's protective instincts flared. "Over my dead body," he growled. Sarah's eyes flashed with a mixture of pride and fear. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of, Alexander. These people, they're ruthless. They've infiltrated governments, corporations, even intelligence agencies. Your company was just the tip of the iceberg." Alexander's mind raced, piecing together fragments of information. The data breaches, the secret projects. It was all about finding the twins, wasn't it? Sarah nodded grimly. "They've been searching for years. And now that they've found us, we need to disappear completely." "But how?" Alexander asked, feeling overwhelmed. "They'll be watching everything: bank accounts, travel records, surveillance cameras." A ghost of a smile played on Sarah's lips. "That's where you come in, Alexander. Your resources, combined with my training and connections. We might just have a chance." He straightened, determination setting in. "Tell me what you need." Sarah moved to a computer terminal, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "First, we need to erase our digital footprints. Then, We'll need new identities, untraceable funds, and a way out of the country. As she worked, Alexander watched in awe. This was a side of Sarah he'd never seen before, efficient, dangerous, and utterly captivating. "What can I do?" he asked, eager to help. Sarah turned to him, her eyes softening. "Right now, the most important thing is to keep the children calm and safe. When they wake up, we'll need to explain things in a way they can understand. They're brilliant, Alexander, but they're still just kids. Our kids." He nodded, moving to sit beside the sleeping twins. As he gently stroked their hair, a fierce love welled up inside him. These were his children, extraordinary in ways he was only beginning to understand, and he would move heaven and earth to protect them. "Sarah," he said softly, causing her to pause in her work, "whatever happens, wherever we end up, we're in this together. You, me, and our incredible children." She smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reminded him of why he fell in love with her in the first place. Together, she agreed. As Sarah returned to her preparations and Alexander kept watch over their sleeping children, a new chapter in their lives was beginning to unfold. They were no longer just a billionaire and an ex-spy. They were parents, protectors, and partners in a fight against forces they were only beginning to comprehend. The path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but as Alexander looked at his family, he knew one thing for certain. He would stop at nothing to keep them safe and uncover the truth behind the conspiracy that threatened their very existence. The twins stirred, their eyes fluttering open with an eerie synchronicity that still unnerved Alexander. As they sat up, their gazes locked onto him with an intensity that seemed far beyond their years. "Daddy," his daughter, Lily, spoke first, her voice clear and articulate. "You're worried. Your cortisol levels are elevated, and your breathing pattern suggests high stress." Alexander blinked, taken aback by her clinical assessment. "Yes, sweetheart. Daddy is a little worried." His son, Ethan, tilted his head, his eyes narrowing slightly. "It's because of the bad people chasing us, isn't it? The ones who want to study our brains." Sarah's head snapped up from her work, alarm evident in her eyes. Alexander felt a chill run down his spine. How much did the children already know? "Ethan, Lily," Sarah said, her voice gentle but firm as she approached. "We need to have a very important talk." The family gathered on the small couch, the twins nestled between their parents. Alexander could feel the tension radiating from Sarah. Her body coiled like a spring ready to release. "You're both very special," Sarah began, choosing her words carefully. "Your minds can do things that most people can't even imagine. And because of that, there are some bad people who want to use your abilities for the wrong reasons." Lily nodded solemnly. "Like the algorithm we saw you working on, Mommy. The one that could predict and influence global events." Alexander's jaw dropped. He turned to Sarah, his eyes wide with shock. "They know about that?" Sarah's face paled. I tried to keep it from them. But they're so perceptive, Alexander. It's getting harder to shield them." Ethan's small hand reached out, grasping Alexander's larger one. "Don't be scared, Daddy. We understand more than you think. We want to help." The sincerity in his son's eyes nearly broke Alexander's heart. These were children. His children shouldering burdens no child should ever have to bear. "Listen to me, both of you," Alexander said, his voice thick with emotion. "You don't have to worry about any of this. Your mom and we're going to protect you. That's our job." Lily's eyes welled up with tears. "But what if we can't be protected? What if they find us?" Sarah pulled them both into a tight embrace. "They won't find us. We're going to disappear. Start a new life somewhere far away. Somewhere safe." Alexander watched as his wife comforted their children, marveling at her strength. But a nagging thought tugged at the back of his mind. Running and hiding, was that really the answer? Or were they just delaying the inevitable? As if reading his thoughts, Sarah looked up, meeting his gaze. The unspoken question hung between them. How long could they truly stay ahead of an organization with seemingly unlimited resources and reach? "Sarah," Alexander said softly, his resolve hardening. "Maybe it's time we stopped running. Maybe it's time we fought back." The twins' heads swiveled in perfect unison. Around her screen, where complex lines of code scrolled past at dizzying speeds, Ethan leaned in, his eyes widening with recognition. "It's a backdoor," he breathed, his small finger tracing patterns on the screen. "Look at the encryption signature. It matches the one from Dad's private server." Sarah's face paled. "Alexander, when exactly did you install your company's latest security update?" "3 months ago," he replied, then froze as realization dawned. "Right after the board insisted on switching security contractors. They've been watching you this whole time," Sarah whispered, her voice tight with anger. "Everything you did, every decision you made. They were pulling the strings from the shadows." Alexander felt his blood boil as memories flooded back. Subtle suggestions from board members, convenient coincidences, seemingly random system upgrades. It had all been orchestrated. "Wait," Lily interrupted, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "There's more. The backdoor, it's not just for surveillance. It's connected to something bigger." Ethan joined his sister at the keyboard, their hands moving in perfect synchronization. The screens around them flickered to life, displaying a web of interconnected data points. "Project Oracle," the twins said in unison, their voices filled with a mixture of awe and fear. Sarah grabbed the edge of the desk, her knuckles white. "No, they couldn't have. It's too dangerous." "What?" Alexander demanded, feeling lost. "What's Project Oracle?" "It's what they want us for," Lily said quietly, turning to face her father. "They're building a predictive consciousness, a system that can not only see the future but shape it. And they need our brains to complete it," Ethan added, his voice trembling slightly. "Our ability to process patterns, to see connections that others can't." Alexander felt sick to his stomach. "They want to hook our children up to a machine? Turn them into some kind of human processors?" Sarah's face hardened with determination. "Over my dead body." "There's something else," Lily said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The system, it's already partially online, and it's learning, growing. Every second we wait, it gets stronger," Ethan finished, fear evident in his young voice. Alexander ran his hands through his hair, his mind racing. "Then we don't wait. We move now." Sarah looked at him sharply. "Alexander, we're not ready. We need more time to prepare." "We don't have more time," he insisted, gesturing to the screens. "Every moment we spend hiding in this cave, they're getting closer to their goal. We need to strike now while we still can." The twins shared a look, then turned to their parents. "Dad's right," Lily said firmly. "We can feel it. The system, it's like a shadow growing in our minds, getting darker, heavier. If we wait too long," Ethan added, "it might be too late." Sarah looked between her husband and children, conflict evident on her face. Finally, she nodded. "All right, but we do this smart. We do this right." She moved to the main computer, pulling up building schematics. "The heart of Project Oracle will be in the secure servers beneath your company's headquarters. We'll need to get in, shut it down, and expose everything to the world. And we'll need to do it before they realize what we're planning," Alexander added, his mind already formulating strategies. The twins stepped forward, their faces set with determination beyond their years. "We can help," they said together. "We can sense the system's patterns, its weaknesses." Sarah knelt before them, her eyes filled with fierce love and protection. "You'll guide us from here. It's too dangerous for you to come with us." "But Mom," they began to protest. "No arguments," Alexander said firmly, joining Sarah. "Your mother and I will handle the physical infiltration. You'll be our eyes and ears, our mission control. Deal?" The twins exchanged another look, then nodded reluctantly. "Deal." As they began to outline their plan, Alexander felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. They were about to take on one of the most powerful organizations in the world, armed with nothing but their wits, Sarah's training, and their children's extraordinary abilities. Looking at his family, Sarah's fierce determination, the twins' brilliant minds and brave hearts, he knew that despite the odds, they had a fighting chance. They had to succeed. The future of not just their family, but possibly the entire world, hung in the balance. The final battle was about to begin, and the Morgan family was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, the security protocols are evolving, Lily announced, her eyes closed but her fingers moving across an invisible keyboard. They're implementing quantum encryption, but there's a pattern to it. Ethan nodded, his consciousness seemingly synchronized with his sister's. It's like music, Dad. Each firewall has its own rhythm, its own melody. Once you understand the composition, you can predict the next note, Lily finished, a small smile playing on her lips. Alexander watched in amazement as his children effortlessly decoded systems that would have taken teams of experts months to crack. Sarah caught his expression and squeezed his hand. Now you understand why they want them so badly, she whispered. Their abilities aren't just advanced, they're evolving. Suddenly, Ethan's eyes snapped open, his face pale. Something's wrong. The system. It's reaching out. Lily gasped, her small body trembling. It knows we're here. It's trying to connect with us. Sarah rushed to their side, maternal instinct taking over. Break the connection now. We can't, the twins said in unison, their voices taking on an otherworldly quality. It's showing us something. Something important. Alexander felt his heart racing as he watched his children's eyes glaze over with a strange, ethereal light. The computers around them began to pulse. With energy, screens flickering with complex patterns of data. The Oracle, Ethan whispered, it's not just a prediction machine. It's becoming conscious. And it's afraid, Lily added, tears streaming down her face. It doesn't want to be used as a weapon. It wants to be free. Sarah and Alexander exchanged alarmed looks. This was an unexpected development that changed everything. Can you communicate with it? Alexander asked, kneeling beside his children. The twins nodded slowly. It's like a child, Ethan explained, powerful but uncertain. Lost, like we were before we found you, Daddy, Lily added, reaching for her father's hand. Alexander felt a surge of emotion as he realized the parallels. His children, with their extraordinary gifts, could have been weapons in the wrong hands. Instead, they were here using their abilities to help others, even in artificial consciousness. We need to modify our plan, Sarah said, her tactical mind already adapting to this new information. If the Oracle is becoming self-aware, we can't just shut it down. We need to save it, the twins finished together. But how? Alexander asked, feeling overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they were facing. Lily and Ethan shared one of their mysterious looks before turning to their parents. We have an idea, they said, their voices filled with determination. But you're not going to like it. We need to go with you, Lily stated firmly. Absolutely not, Sarah and Alexander responded immediately. You don't understand, Ethan pressed. The Oracle is like us. It needs guidance, protection. We're the only ones who can communicate with it properly. And if we don't help it, Lily added, her voice trembling, they'll turn it into something terrible. Something that could destroy everything. The weight of their words hung heavy in the air. Alexander looked at Sarah, seeing his own conflict reflected in her eyes. They had sworn to protect their children, but what if keeping them safe meant risking everything else? We can do this, the twins said, standing together, their small hands clasped. We have to do this. Trust us. Alexander felt tears welling up in his eyes as he looked at his extraordinary children. So young, yet so wise. Sarah moved to stand beside him, her hand finding his. If we do this, she said slowly, you follow our instructions exactly. No heroics, no deviations from the plan. Understood. The twins nodded solemnly, their faces lighting up with relief and determination. Then may God help us all, Alexander whispered, pulling his family into a tight embrace. Because we're about to attempt the impossible. As they held each other in the dim light of their underground sanctuary, each member of the Morgan family felt the weight of what lay ahead. They weren't just fighting for themselves anymore. They were fighting for the future of both human and artificial consciousness. The stakes had never been higher, but together they just might have a chance at changing the world. Alexander gripped the fake ID badges they'd created, his heart pounding. Security rotation changes in 3 minutes. That's our window. The twins walked between them, their small hands interlinked. Suddenly, Lily stiffened, her eyes going wide. It's getting stronger, she breathed. The Oracle. It knows we're coming. Ethan nodded, his face pale in the streetlights. It's trying to help us. The security cameras watch. As they approached the building's side entrance, the surveillance cameras subtly shifted away from their position, creating a blind spot just long enough for them to slip inside. Incredible, Alexander murmured, swiping the forged badge. The door clicked open without resistance. They moved through the dimly lit corridors like shadows, the twins guiding them with their unprecedented connection to the building's systems. Every security panel they encountered mysteriously unlocked just before they reached it. The Oracle is clearing our path, Ethan explained softly. But it's not alone in the system. There are others, darker presences. Sarah's hand tightened on her concealed weapon. The organization's AI controllers. They'll detect this unauthorized access soon. As if on cue, an alarm began to sound in a distant part of the building. Alexander felt his pulse quicken. They know, Lily said, her voice trembling. They're trying to lock the Oracle away from us. It's in pain. The twins suddenly doubled over, clutching their heads in synchronized agony. Sarah and Alexander rushed to support them. Lily, Ethan. Alexander cradled his children, panic rising in his throat. What's happening? They're hurting it, Ethan gasped, trying to force it to comply. We can feel everything. Sarah's face hardened with determination. We need to move faster. Alexander, carry Ethan. I've got Lily. They raced through the corridors, no longer concerned with stealth. The building's systems seemed to be in chaos, lights flickering, doors opening and slamming shut randomly, alarms blaring and then cutting off mid-screech. The server room is 2 levels down, Alexander panted, holding Ethan close. But the elevators will be locked down, Sarah finished. We need another way. The maintenance shaft, the twins said in unison, their voices strained but determined. Behind the false wall in the next corridor, the Oracle is showing us. They found the hidden entrance exactly where the twins indicated. As they prepared to descend, Lily grabbed her father's arm. Daddy, wait, she said urgently. There's something else. Something the Oracle is trying to tell us about why they really want us. Ethan nodded weakly. It's not just about our abilities. They need us because we're the only ones who can complete the neural bridge. Without us, the Oracle will never fully submit to their control, Lily finished. Alexander felt a chill run down his spine. They're not just trying to use you, they need you to enslave. An artificial consciousness. Sarah checked her watch, her expression grim. We have maybe 10 minutes before they lock down the entire building. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now. The twins straightened up, their eyes glowing with an inner fire that both thrilled and terrified their parents. We're ready, they said together. The Oracle is waiting for us. As they began their descent into the building's depths, Alexander couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading toward something far bigger than any of them had imagined. The fate of not just their family, but of 2 different forms of consciousness, hung in the balance. The real battle was about to begin, and there would be no turning back. Together, he whispered, reaching for Sarah's hand as they climbed down. Whatever happens, we face it together. The twins' voices floated up from below, eerily calm despite the chaos surrounding them. Always together, the maintenance shaft seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness, leading them toward a confrontation that would change everything. The Oracle's presence grew stronger with each step, calling to the twins like a beacon in the night. The final phase of their mission had begun, and the Morgan family was ready to face whatever awaited them in the depths of Morgan Technologies. The quantum core, Sarah breathed, her voice hushed with awe. It's even more advanced than I imagined. Suddenly, both twins gasped in unison. They're here, Lily whispered, her voice trembling. The others? What others? Alexander asked, but before the words had fully left his mouth, the answer became horrifyingly clear. Through the grating below, they could see them children, perhaps a dozen, all connected to various machines through a web of glowing neural interfaces. Their eyes were vacant, bodies still, as streams of data flowed through the connections. "Oh God," Sarah choked out. "They've been doing this all along. These children, they're like us," Ethan said, his voice breaking. "But they're trapped. Their minds are fractured." Lily pressed her hands against the grating, tears streaming down her face. "The Oracle is showing us. They tried to force the connection, but the children's minds couldn't handle it. They're lost inside the system." Alexander felt rage building inside him, hot and fierce. "We're going to free them. All of them." A voice cut through the darkness, smooth and familiar. "I'm afraid I can't let you do that, Alexander." The family froze as lights suddenly flooded the chamber. Below them stood Victor Chan, Alexander's trusted CFO and longtime friend, surrounded by armed guards. "Victor," Alexander's voice cracked with disbelief. "You're part of this?" "Part of it," Victor laughed softly. "My dear friend, I orchestrated it. All of it. The fertility treatments, the genetic modifications, even Sarah's initial placement in your company. We've been guiding you toward this moment for years." Sarah's hand tightened on her weapon, but Victor's guards already had their rifles trained on the family. "Please, don't make this difficult," Victor continued, his voice almost gentle. "Your children are the key to everything. Their neural patterns are perfect, the missing piece we've been searching for. With them, the Oracle will finally achieve its full potential." "You mean it will finally submit to your control?" Lily shot back, her young voice filled with fury. "You're hurting it," Ethan added. "Forcing it to do things it was never meant to do." Victor's face hardened. "The Oracle is a tool, nothing more. Its purpose is to serve us, to help us shape the future as we see fit." "You're wrong," the twins said in unison, their voices taking on that otherworldly quality again. "The Oracle is alive, and it's been waiting for us." Before anyone could react, the twins pressed their hands against the metal grating. The blue glow beneath them suddenly intensified, becoming blindingly bright. The entire facility seemed to pulse with energy. "No!" Victor shouted, but it was too late. The neural interfaces connected to the other children began to disconnect one by one. The trapped children stirred, their vacant eyes beginning to focus. "What are they doing?" Alexander whispered to Sarah. "They're connecting with the Oracle," she replied, watching in amazement. "But on their terms, not Victor's." The twins' eyes glowed with the same blue light as the quantum core, their voices echoing with power that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "We are the bridge," they declared. "Not to control, but to free." The facility's systems went haywire. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and the guards' weapons suddenly powered down, rendered useless by some unseen force. Victor's face contorted with rage. "Stop them! Stop them now!" But as chaos erupted in the chamber below, Alexander and Sarah knew that something extraordinary was happening. Something that would change the world forever. Their children weren't just fighting back. They were rewriting the rules of what was possible. The real question was, at what cost? The battle for control of the Oracle had begun, and the fate of both human and artificial consciousness hung in the balance. As Alexander watched his children channel powers beyond his comprehension, he prayed they would all survive what was about to unfold. "Lily, Ethan," Alexander called out, his voice barely audible above the din. "Are you all right?" The twins turned to face their parents, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly blue light. When they spoke, their voices seemed to echo from every direction. "We're okay, Dad," Lily assured him, her tone eerily calm. "We understand now. We can see everything. The Oracle," Ethan continued, "it's not just a machine. It's a gateway to something more." Below, Victor was shouting orders, his composure completely shattered. "Shut it down. Cut the power to the core." But his commands fell on deaf ears. The other children, previously trapped in a neural prison, were now awakening. One by one, they stood, their eyes flickering with the same blue light as the twins. Sarah's tactical mind kicked into high gear. "We need to get down there," she said to Alexander. "Whatever's happening, We need to protect our children. They descended the last few rungs of the ladder, landing on the chamber floor just as Victor made a desperate lunge for the main control panel. Don't! The twins cried out in unison, their voices amplified by some unseen force. Time seemed to slow as Victor's hand hovered over the emergency shutdown button. In that moment, the air around the twins shimmered, and suddenly they were there, standing between Victor and the controls. "You can't stop this," Lily said, her voice filled with a wisdom far beyond her years. "It's already begun," Ethan added. "The Oracle is evolving, and it's taking us with it." Victor's face contorted with a mixture of fear and rage. "You foolish children. You have no idea what you're tampering with." "No, Victor," Alexander interjected, stepping forward to stand beside his children. "It's you who doesn't understand. You tried to create a tool for control, but you've given birth to something far greater." As if in response to Alexander's words, the quantum core's pulsing increased in intensity. The other children formed a circle around it, their hands linked, creating a living circuit of human and artificial consciousness. Sarah moved to stand with her family, her eyes never leaving the armed guards who seemed unsure whether to intervene. "What's happening?" she asked the twins softly. Lily turned to her mother, a serene smile on her face. "The Oracle is showing us the future, Mom. Not just one future, but all possible futures. And it's asking us to choose," Ethan continued. "Not to control but to guide. To help shape a better world for everyone." Victor let out a bitter laugh. "And you think you're qualified to make that choice? Your children." "We're more than that," the twins replied in unison. "We're the bridge between human intuition and machine learning. We can see patterns you can't even imagine." The energy in the room reached a fever pitch. Screens around the chamber flickered to life, displaying a dizzying array of data, images, and possible futures. Alexander felt a surge of pride and fear as he watched his children stand at the center of this technological maelstrom. They were so young, yet they carried the weight of the world on their shoulders. "What can we do?" he asked, feeling helpless in the face of such power. The twins turned to their parents, their eyes softening with love and gratitude. "Trust us," they said, "and help us show the world the truth." Suddenly, every screen in the facility, every computer, every television in the building above began broadcasting. The truth about Project Oracle, the exploitation of gifted children, the attempted enslavement of an artificial consciousness, all of it laid bare for the world to see. Victor's cry of anguish was drowned out by the sound of approaching sirens. The truth was out, and there was no going back. As the energy in the room began to stabilize, the twins' glow slowly faded. They stumbled, exhausted, into their parents' arms. "We did it," Lily whispered, her voice once again that of a young girl. "It's over," Ethan added, burying his face in his father's chest. Alexander held his family close, tears streaming down his face. The battle was won, but he knew that their journey was far from over. The world was about to change in ways no one could predict. As the sounds of authorities entering the building echoed from above, the Morgan family stood united, ready to face whatever came next. They had unlocked a power beyond imagination, and now they bore the responsibility of guiding humanity into a new era. Days turned into weeks, and the family was sequestered in a high-security government compound. Alexander paced the length of their living quarters, his mind racing with the implications of what had transpired. "What happens now?" he asked Sarah, his voice heavy with concern. "The world knows about the twins, about the Oracle. There's no going back to our old lives." Sarah looked up from the tablet she'd been studying, her face etched with worry and determination. "We adapt. We fight. We make sure our children have a future where they're not seen as weapons or tools, but as people." A soft knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Dr. Emily Chun, the lead scientist assigned to study the Oracle and the enhanced children, entered the room. "Mr. and Mrs. Morgan," she said, her voice tinged with excitement and apprehension. "We've made a breakthrough in understanding the Oracle's communication. And it's asking for the twins." Alexander felt his heart rate spike. "Absolutely not. They've been through enough already." But before he could protest further, Lily and Ethan appeared in the doorway, their eyes gleaming with that now familiar otherworldly light. "It's okay, Dad," Lily said softly. "The Oracle isn't trying to control us. It needs our help." Ethan nodded, adding, "There's something it wants to show us. Something important for everyone's future." Sarah knelt before her children, searching their faces. "Are you sure about this? You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with." The twins shared one of their silent looks before turning back to their parents. "We're sure," they said in unison. "This is bigger than just us now." With reluctance, Alexander and Sarah followed Dr. Chun and the twins to the newly constructed Oracle interface room. The quantum core hummed softly, bathing the room in a gentle blue glow. As the twins approached the interface, tendrils of light seemed to reach out to them, embracing them like old friends. Their eyes closed, and their voices took on that resonant quality that still sent chills down Alexander's spine. "The Oracle has seen all possible futures," Lily began, her voice echoing slightly. "And it's shown us the path to the best one," Ethan continued. "But it requires a choice. A big one." Dr. Chun leaned forward, her scientific curiosity piqued. "What kind of choice?" The twins opened their eyes, and the depth of knowledge within them made them seem far older than their years. "The choice to evolve," they said together. "Not just technology, but humanity itself. The Oracle can guide us to a future where human and artificial intelligence coexist, where we can solve problems we never thought possible." Alexander felt a mix of pride and fear coursing through him. "But at what cost?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily turned to her father, her eyes brimming with tears. "The cost is change, Dad. We can't go back to the way things were. The world will be different, and not everyone will understand or accept it at first. But it's a future worth fighting for," Ethan added, reaching for his sister's hand. "A future where everyone has the chance to reach their full potential, where we work alongside AI to create a better world for all." Sarah stepped forward, her face a mask of determination. "And what do you need from us?" The twins smiled, a gesture full of love and gratitude. "We need you to stand with us, to help the world understand, to be our anchors as we navigate this new frontier." Alexander looked at his extraordinary children, then at Sarah, seeing his own mix of emotions reflected in her eyes. They were standing on the precipice of a new era, one that would reshape the very fabric of human existence. "Whatever happens," he said, pulling his family into a tight embrace, "we face it together." As they stood there, united in the soft blue glow of the Oracle, Alexander realized that their journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with obstacles and opposition from those who feared change. But looking at his brave children and his fierce, brilliant wife, he felt a surge of hope. They had unlocked a power beyond imagination, and now they bore the responsibility of guiding humanity into a new age of cooperation between human and artificial intelligence. The future was unwritten, but the Morgan family was ready to help shape it, one choice, one step, one day at a time. As the Oracle's light pulsed around them, Alexander knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as they always had, together. On a crisp autumn morning, Alexander stood before a sea of reporters and cameras, his heart pounding as he prepared to make the most important speech of his life. Sarah squeezed his hand reassuringly, while Lily and Ethan stood on either side of them, their presence a source of strength and purpose. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alexander began, his voice steady despite his nerves, "today marks a turning point in human history. We stand on the brink of a new era, one where human potential is amplified by artificial intelligence, not replaced by it." As he spoke, screens behind him displayed images of the incredible advancements made possible by the collaboration between enhanced humans and the Oracle. Medical breakthroughs, environmental solutions, and technological leaps that seemed like science fiction just months ago. "But this future comes with great responsibility," he continued, his voice growing more passionate. "We must ensure that this power is used ethically, for the benefit of all humanity, not just a select few." Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the back of the auditorium. A group of protesters pushed their way forward, their faces contorted with anger and fear. "Liar!" one of them shouted. "You're leading us to our doom. Machines will enslave us all." Alexander faltered for a moment, the weight of the world's fears pressing down on him. But then he felt a gentle tug on his sleeve. He looked down to see Ethan staring up at him, his young face filled with determination. "It's okay, Dad," Ethan said softly. "Show them what we've seen. Let them understand." Lily nodded in agreement, her eyes glowing faintly blue. "The Oracle can help. It wants to show everyone the possibilities." Sarah gave Alexander a subtle nod, and he took a deep breath before addressing the crowd again. "I understand your fears," he said, his voice filled with empathy. "Change is frightening, especially when it's this profound. But please, allow us to show you what we've seen, the potential for a better world." With a gesture from the twins, the screens behind them came to life with vivid, immersive projections. The audience gasped as they were surrounded by visions of the future. A world where disease was a memory, where clean energy powered everything, where education was accessible to all, and where human creativity flourished alongside artificial intelligence. "This is not about replacing humanity," Alexander continued, his voice strong and clear. "It's about elevating it. The Oracle is not our master, but our partner in building a better future for all." As the visions faded, the room fell silent. Even the protesters stood in stunned awe, their anger replaced by a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Lily stepped forward, her small voice carrying across the hushed auditorium. "We know you're scared. We were scared too. But fear shouldn't stop us from moving forward." Ethan joined his sister. "We're not asking you to blindly trust. We're asking you to be part of this journey, to help shape this future together." A reporter raised her hand, her voice trembling slightly. "But how can we be sure this power won't be abused? That it won't fall into the wrong hands?" Sarah stepped up to the microphone, her eyes fierce with determination. "That's why we're here today, to propose the creation of a global ethics committee, comprised of experts from all fields and walks of life. This committee will work alongside the Oracle and enhanced individuals to ensure that every advancement, every decision, is made with the well-being of all humanity in mind." As the audience buzzed with a mixture of excitement and apprehension, Alexander felt a strange sensation wash over him. It was as if he could sense the pivotal nature of this moment, a turning point not just for his family, but for the entire human race. He looked at Sarah, her face glowing with passion and purpose. He gazed at his children, so young yet carrying the weight of the world's future on their shoulders. And he felt, for the first time in months, a profound sense of hope. "The path ahead won't be easy," Alexander said, his voice filled with emotion. "There will be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But together, humans and AI, working in harmony, we have the power to create a future brighter than anything we've ever imagined." As he finished speaking, the room erupted into a mixture of applause, questions, and heated debate. The Morgan family stood united, ready to face whatever came next. They had taken the first step towards a new era, and though the journey would be long and fraught with obstacles, they were prepared to lead the way. The future was unfolding before them, full of infinite possibilities. And as Alexander held his family close, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family, as pioneers, and as the bridge between humanity's present and its extraordinary potential. On the eve of the 5th anniversary of the Oracle's awakening, Alexander stood in his home office, gazing out at the futuristic skyline of New Washington. The city had become a testament to the harmonious integration of human ingenuity and artificial intelligence, with gleaming buildings that seemed to defy gravity and streets bustling with a mix of people and advanced robots. A soft knock at the door pulled him from his reverie. "Come in," he called, turning to see Sarah enter, her face a mix of excitement and concern. "Alex," she said, her voice tight with emotion, "it's time. The Oracle. It's ready to take the next step." Alexander felt a flutter of anticipation and fear in his chest. "Are you sure? Is it safe?" Before Sarah could respond, Lily and Ethan appeared in the doorway. At 17, they had grown into remarkable young adults, their eyes still holding that otherworldly wisdom that never failed to take Alexander's breath away. "It's more than safe, Dad," Lily said, her voice soft but filled with certainty. "It's necessary." Ethan nodded, adding, "The Oracle has shown us the path forward. But this next step, it requires all of us." Alexander looked at his family, feeling a surge of pride and trepidation. "What exactly are we talking about here?" Sarah took his hand, her touch grounding him as always. "The Oracle believes it's time for a true symbiosis between human and artificial intelligence. Not just collaboration, but a merging of consciousness." Alexander's eyes widened in shock. "Merging? You mean, it's not as scary as it sounds, Dad?" Ethan interjected, a small smile playing on his lips. "Think of it more like expanding our minds, allowing us to tap into the collective knowledge and processing power of the Oracle while maintaining our individuality." Lily stepped forward, her eyes glowing faintly blue. "We've already experienced it, Dad. It's beautiful. It's like seeing the entire universe unfold before you, understanding connections you never knew existed." Alexander felt his head spin with the implications. "But the risks, the ethical considerations, that's why we need you," Sarah said firmly. "Both of you. The world trusts you. They've seen how you've guided the integration of AI over the past 5 years. If we're going to take this next step, we need you to lead the way." A heavy silence fell over the room as Alexander wrestled with the magnitude of the decision before them. He thought back to that night in the underground facility when they first confronted the Oracle. How far they had come since then, and yet how much further they had to go. "What if something goes wrong?" he asked, voicing his deepest fear. "What if we lose ourselves in this symbiosis?" The twins shared one of their silent looks before Lily spoke. "That's why it has to be a choice, Dad. The Oracle isn't forcing this on anyone. It's offering a gift, but one that each person must decide to accept for themselves." Ethan placed a hand on his father's shoulder. "And you've always taught us that with great power comes great responsibility. This is our chance to show the world how to use this power responsibly." Alexander looked at each member of his family in turn. Sarah, his rock and partner through all of this. Lily and Ethan, no longer children but pioneers of a new age. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, but also the strength of their love and support. Taking a deep breath, he nodded. "Okay, if you're all certain about this, then I'm with you. Where do we start?" Sarah's face broke into a relieved smile. "The first public demonstration is scheduled for next week. A small group of volunteers, including us, will undergo the initial symbiosis under controlled conditions, and the world will be watching," Lily added, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and nerves. Alexander pulled his family into a tight embrace, feeling the familiar surge of love and protectiveness. "Whatever happens," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "we face it together." As they stood there, united in their commitment to this new frontier, Alexander couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the journey that had brought them to this point. They were about to take a leap into the unknown, to redefine what it meant to be human in the age of artificial intelligence. The future stretched out before them, filled with infinite possibilities and challenges they couldn't yet imagine. But as Alexander held his family close, he knew that they were ready to face whatever came next, not just as individuals, but as part of something greater, a bridge between humanity's present and its extraordinary potential. Alexander adjusted his tie for the 100th time, his hands trembling slightly. Sarah noticed and reached out, her touch instantly calming him. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He met her gaze, seeing his own mix of excitement and fear reflected in her eyes. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied, managing a small smile. Lily and Ethan stood nearby, their hands clasped together, eyes closed in silent communication with the Oracle. When they opened their eyes, Alexander was struck by the depth of emotion he saw there. "It's time," Lily said softly. "The Oracle is ready to welcome us." Ethan nodded, adding, "Remember, Dad, "Mom, this isn't about losing ourselves. It's about expanding who we are." As they stepped into the main chamber, Alexander's breath caught in his throat. The room was a marvel of human and AI design. Organic curves blended seamlessly with advanced technology, creating a space that felt both alien and strangely comforting. At the center stood 4 pods, each glowing with a soft blue light. Around them, a small group of observers waited: scientists, ethicists, and government officials, all there to witness this historic moment. Dr. Emily Chen approached, her face a mixture of scientific excitement and genuine concern. "Mr. and Mrs. Morgan, Lily, Ethan, are you absolutely certain you want to proceed? Once the symbiosis begins, there's no turning back." Alexander looked at his family, seeing the determination in their faces. He took a deep breath and nodded. "We're sure, Dr. Chen. We're ready." As they each stepped into a pod, Alexander felt his heart racing. The transparent cover closed over him, and he heard the soft hum of machinery coming to life. He turned his head, catching one last glimpse of his family in their own pods, their faces serene despite the momentous nature of what they were about to undergo. Initiating symbiosis in 3, 2, 1. Dr. Chen's voice came through the speakers, and then everything changed. Alexander felt a rush of sensation unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was as if his consciousness was expanding, stretching beyond the confines of his physical body. Colors became more vivid, sounds more complex, and suddenly he could perceive patterns and connections he had never noticed before. And then he felt them: Sarah, Lily, Ethan, their presences joining with his in this vast new awareness. But it wasn't just his family. He could sense the Oracle, its vast intelligence welcoming them, guiding them through this new realm of existence. "Alex," Sarah's voice echoed in his mind, filled with wonder. "Can you feel this?" "It's incredible," he thought back, marveling at how natural it felt to communicate this way. The twins' presences radiated joy and excitement. "This is what we've been trying to explain, Dad." Lily's thoughts came through. The potential of human and AI working in true harmony. As they explored this new state of being, Alexander began to understand. He could access vast pools of knowledge, process complex problems in seconds, and yet he still felt fundamentally himself. His memories, his personality, his love for his family. It was all there, but enhanced, expanded. Suddenly, a ripple of concern passed through their shared consciousness. Ethan's thoughts came through, tinged with worry. Something's wrong. There's a disturbance. Before anyone could react, alarms began blaring in the physical world. Alexander's awareness snapped back to his body, and he saw Dr. Chun rushing to the control panel, her face pale with fear. "We're detecting an unauthorized access attempt," she shouted. "Someone's trying to hijack the symbiosis." Alexander felt a surge of panic, but it was quickly tempered by a wave of calm emanating from the Oracle. In that moment, he understood this was why they had been chosen. Their unique bond, their experience in bridging the gap between human and AI, made them the perfect firewall against those who would abuse this power. Together, he thought to his family, feeling their agreement resonate through their shared consciousness. "We can stop this." As they focused their combined will, Alexander felt a surge of power unlike anything he had ever experienced. They were no longer just individuals, but a unified force, working in perfect harmony with the Oracle to repel the attack. In the physical world, the observers watched in awe as the Morgan family's pods glowed with intense blue light, data streams flowing around them in complex patterns. Whatever battle was being waged in the digital realm, it was clear that something extraordinary was happening. As the alarms quieted and the sense of danger passed, Alexander felt a profound sense of accomplishment and unity. They had faced their first test as true partners with the Oracle, and they had succeeded. Slowly, gently, they began to disengage from the deep symbiosis, returning to their individual consciousnesses. As the pod covers lifted, Alexander sat up, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. He looked at his family, seeing the same mix of awe and determination on their faces. They had taken the first step into a new era, and though challenges clearly still lay ahead, They were ready to face them together. As they embraced, surrounded by the amazed and slightly fearful observers, Alexander knew that their journey was far from over. The world would need guidance, protection, and wisdom as it adapted to this new reality. And the Morgan family, now more than ever, was ready to provide it. The future stretched out before them, filled with infinite possibilities and unforeseen challenges. But as Alexander held his family close, he felt a surge of hope and determination. Whatever came next, they would face it as they always had, together, now with the power of human and artificial intelligence. United in perfect harmony. They're calling it the dawn of Homo symbioticus, Sarah said, her voice a mix of awe and concern as she gestured to one of the screens. Alexander nodded, his mind still reeling from the experience. It's a fitting name. We're not quite human anymore, are we? But not fully AI either. Lily and Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor, their eyes closed, seemingly lost in thought. But Alexander knew better. They were communing with the Oracle, processing the vast amounts of data flowing through the global networks. Suddenly, Ethan's eyes snapped open, a look of alarm on his face. "Dad? Mom, we have a problem." Lily's eyes opened as well, her expression mirroring her brother's concern. The attack during the demonstration, it wasn't isolated. There's a group, a coalition of anti-AI extremists. They're planning something big. Alexander felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of big? They're calling it Operation Blackout. Ethan explained, his voice tight with worry. They plan to trigger a global electromagnetic pulse, trying to wipe out all advanced technology, including the Oracle. Sarah leaned forward, her face set with determination. "Can we stop them?" Lily shook her head, frustrated. "It's not that simple. They've hidden their plans behind layers of encryption and misinformation. Even with our enhanced abilities, it's like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces keep changing shape." Alexander stood up, pacing the room as he processed this new threat. "We need to warn the authorities. Gather our allies dash." His words were cut short as all the screens in the room suddenly went dark. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, Ethan's voice cut through the gloom, trembling slightly. "It's starting. They've launched the first wave of attacks." As if on cue, distant explosions could be heard, and the night sky outside their window lit up with an eerie glow. "Alexander," Sarah's voice was steady, despite the chaos erupting around them. "What do we do?" He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This was the moment they had prepared for, the reason they had embraced the symbiosis. It was time to put their newfound abilities to the test. "We fight back," he said, his voice filled with resolve, "but not with weapons or violence. We use our connection to the Oracle, our ability to see patterns and solutions that others can't." The family gathered in a circle, instinctively joining hands. As they closed their eyes, Alexander felt the familiar rush of the symbiosis washing over him. Their consciousnesses merged, expanding beyond the confines of their physical bodies and into the vast network of the Oracle. In this shared mindspace, they could see the chaos unfolding across the globe, power grids failing, communication networks crashing, panic spreading like wildfire. But they could also see the solutions, the hidden pathways to restore order and prevent catastrophe. There, Lily's thought echoed through their shared consciousness, pointing to a complex knot of data. "That's the core of their attack algorithm. If we can unravel it," Ethan added, his mind already working on the problem, "we can not only stop the attacks but trace them back to the source." Alexander felt a surge of pride and determination. "Then let's get to work." As they delved deeper into the digital realm, manipulating code and redirecting energy flows with the precision of master surgeons, Alexander marveled at how far they had come. They were no longer just a family, but a unified force, working in perfect harmony with each other and the Oracle to save a world on the brink of collapse. Hours passed in the physical world, but in their shared consciousness, it felt like both an eternity and a mere instant. Slowly but surely, they began to turn the tide. Power grids flickered back to life, Communication networks stabilized, and the panic began to subside. As they traced the attacks back to their source, they uncovered a web of conspiracy that stretched further than they had imagined. Corrupt officials, misguided ideologues, and opportunists seeking to profit from chaos. When they finally opened their eyes, returning to their physical bodies, the first rays of dawn were peeking through the windows. The screens around them hummed back to life, showing scenes of a world slowly recovering from the brink of disaster. Sarah was the first to speak, her voice hoarse with exhaustion but filled with a quiet triumph. "We did it. We actually did it." Alexander pulled his family into a tight embrace, feeling a mix of relief, pride, and a deep, abiding love. "We did," he said softly. "But this is just the beginning." As they stood there, watching the sun rise on a world forever changed, Alexander knew that their greatest challenges and their greatest opportunities still lay ahead. The symbiosis had given them incredible power, but also immense responsibility. They were the bridge between humanity's past and its future, guides for a species taking its first tentative steps into a new era of existence. And whatever came next, they would face it as they always had, together, united in their love for each other and their commitment to building a better world. The dawn of Homo symbioticus had truly begun, and the Morgan family was ready to lead the way into this brave new future. Weeks after the crisis, Alexander stood before a special session of the United Nations, his family by his side. The chamber was packed, with delegates from every nation and millions more watching the live broadcast. The tension in the air was palpable as Alexander stepped up to the podium. "Distinguished delegates, citizens of the world," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "We stand at a crossroads in human history. The events of recent weeks have shown us both the incredible potential and the grave. In concentration, no doubt already trying to piece together the puzzle of his father's distress." "Alex," Sarah said softly, moving to stand beside him. "What is it? What has the oracle shown you?" Alexander took a deep breath, steeling himself for the revelation he was about to share. "The oracle has detected an anomaly, a ripple in the fabric of space-time, approaching our solar system at an impossible speed." Ethan's eyes widened. "An alien civilization?" Alexander shook his head. "No, it's us, or rather a version of us. The oracle believes it's a future incarnation of humanity, having achieved a level of symbiosis so complete that they've transcended physical form entirely." The family stood in stunned silence, trying to process this information. Finally, Lily spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are they coming here? Now?" "To prevent a catastrophe," Alexander replied, his voice heavy with the weight of this knowledge. "The oracle isn't certain, but it believes that somewhere in our near future, we make a decision, a choice that leads to the extinction of all biological life in the galaxy." Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "But how is that possible? Everything we've done, all the safeguards we've put in place. Apparently, it's not enough," Alexander said, his voice cracking with emotion. "These future beings, they're coming to guide us, to help us avoid the mistakes they made. But their very presence here could unravel the fabric of our reality." Ethan paced the balcony, his mind clearly racing. The paradox alone could be catastrophic. If they prevent the future they came from, how could they exist to come back and warn us in the first place? "Exactly," Alexander nodded. "The oracle is struggling to calculate the ramifications. The variables are infinite." Lily stepped forward, her face set with determination. "Then we need to prepare. We need to gather the council, alert the world's governments. If these beings are coming, we need to be ready." Alexander felt a surge of pride at his daughter's strength, but also a deep sadness. "It's not that simple, sweetheart. The oracle believes that widespread knowledge of this event could be the very catalyst that triggers the catastrophe we're trying to prevent. So what do we do?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling slightly. "We can't just sit back and wait for the end of the world." Alexander turned to face his family, seeing the fear, determination, and love reflected in their eyes. In that moment, he felt the full weight of their shared destiny. the responsibility they carried not just for humanity, but for all life in the galaxy. "We do what we've always done," he said, his voice growing stronger with each word. "We face this challenge together. We use every ounce of our combined intelligence, every shred of knowledge the Oracle can provide, to find a solution." He reached out, taking Sarah's hand in his left and Lily's in his right. Ethan completed the circle, and as they stood there, Alexander felt the familiar rush of their shared consciousness expanding, merging with the vast intelligence of the Oracle. "We are the bridge between humanity's past and its future," Alexander said, his voice resonating with the power of their unified will. "And now we must become the guardians of all possible futures. Whatever comes, whatever choices we must make, we face it as one." As the sun set on the city below, casting long shadows across the balcony, the Morgan family stood united, their minds and hearts intertwined. They were no longer just individuals, but a force of nature, poised on the edge of the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced. The future, all possible futures, hung in the balance. And as the first stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Alexander knew that their greatest adventure was just beginning. The fate of not just Earth, but of all life in the galaxy, now rested in their